What's happening, Stokastic baseball fans? I'm going to start talking because I assume Tyler's pointing at me. I didn't have the screen loaded up. I was trying to get the other YouTube window that accidentally popped up. Let's see, this is how to create an NFT collection. Well, that's not what we're here for. We're here for MLB Live Before Lock. We're starting a couple minutes late, a couple little technical things on the back end, but I'm lucky enough to be joined by my pal here, Gundacker. You guys, if you tuned in this morning, all heard me talk about this slate up and down with Josh. So I'm going to kick it over to Gun as much as I can. We're going to get his input here. Gun, how's your Friday going, buddy? It's good to be here with you on a Friday. We don't usually do these Friday nighters.
I definitely knew and remembered everything about us doing a show together on Friday. So it is good to be here that I knew about 10 minutes ago.
Yes, always good to be well informed about the schedule and when things happen and when they do not. But yeah, good to be here. So no need to check your calendars, adjust your TV sets, guys. It is not Saturday evening. It is Friday evening. We've got a 12 gamer. We've got some interesting stuff to talk about. We are brought to you by our pals over at Odd Shopper, our sister site. We'll talk through that. Hit the like, hit the subscribe, all these little fun things that we ask you guys to do. Helps you get notifications when we go live, when we kick out promos and all these different things that we're doing. And there are so many different things going on these days with new products coming out. You want to be getting those announcements. So make sure to hit the subscribe button. Go over to the site too. Check out free premium tools and data today. We've got the MLB Top Stacks is free today, which is kind of relevant for what we're going to be diving into here. And then the all-new NFL lineup generator, which is going to be entirely free for week 1 only. So you can find that link down in the video description down there. Don't forget everything that we've got to offer as well for MLB night slates on DraftKings. So those late night 9:30, 9:40 type starts, 100% free the remainder of the season on the site over at Stokastic. Jump in there, check out the top stacks, top pitchers, ownership projections, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Get behind the paywall, test it out. It's a great way to give the tools a shot before purchasing. And I guarantee if you fall in love with the MLB product, you're going to check out the NFL product. That's going to get you on the platinum plan, and you're going to be off and running for everything that we cover. So it's a great way to approach everything. That's enough business for now. We'll talk about that other stuff. Hit the like, hit the subscribe. Mr. Gundacker, what are we seeing in like an overview sense? Are there any weather spots? It looked like two kind of, not to steal anybody's approach to doing this, but yellowish, orangish kind of tracks. I won't say where I got that information from, but kudos to them. What are you thinking weather-wise? Any worries on the slate or anything else to call out like that?
Yeah, the weatherman, Minnesota and San Diego. And San Diego's the unique one.
Weird. Yeah.
They're not used to that. So when they get rain, it usually involves some more erratic decision making, because I'm not sure if their field is like the rest of the league and ready to handle rain. So something to keep an eye on.
No tarp on the side on the sidelines or anything.
It never rains in San Diego apparently. I don't know.
Right. Yeah, that shocked me when I saw that this morning. This is probably the one day all year they'll get rain, but yeah, that seemed like a concern. Are you doing anything with those games because of that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to babysit them. I think San Diego, that game's a little bit more interesting as far as watching it, because it involves two of probably the best pure pitchers on the slate, and then two of the better offenses. So that's already one of the scumdacker spots of the century. And then you throw in some rain, it might start chipping away at some ownership. But it is late. It's one of the latest games on the slate. So we do have the benefit of maybe late swapping here, and at those prices, we can maybe get into some Dodgers and something like that. We also saw a pitching change in a game that locks at the same time. The Athletics, they went from Caprillion to Austin Pruitt, I think. So there is some late swappage to be done. So I do think it's worth it, if you have the time, worth holding on to what you planned on doing, but being flexible to go back later on and late swap out.
Makes sense. Yeah. And we've got the upside of having all the lineups in. So that's a lot easier to do on a day like today, where we've got all those lineups to work with and you kind of know where everything else falls around it. A lot of days you don't have the other pieces. So it just makes it almost impossible to, really plan ahead. You can do that here. We've got both time and the other pieces. So yeah, I'm leaving things as they are right now, and I'll deal with anything post lock that I need to. So let's dive into the game by game. We'll take questions and everything as they come up in the chat, guys. I'll get that, make sure I'm paying attention to that. But let's take a look the Rays at our New York Yankees here, and we've got something really interesting to talk about with the bats. But first, let's take a look at the pitching here. Drew Rasmussen going for the Tampa Bay Rays up against our New York Yankees with Frankie Montas on the hill. I need to update the ownership I've got in here, but as of earlier, the public was largely laying off Drew Rasmussen at what looks like a fair price and going a little bit to Frankie Montas, but not aggressively. So I'll update ownership while you talk, but take me through the two pitchers real quick.
So I think Rasmussen, in context, and thinking about the perhaps lack of Robbie Ray and Charlie Morton, while we can late swap those offenses, we really can't late swap pitching and feel as strong. And I think Rasmussen, a 9.4K, feels uncomfortable on the surface, but he has been performing just fine. 12% swing and strike rate, 22% K rate on the season, at 3.5 expected ERA. And these ain't your daddy's Yankees, man. This is a AAA lineup, and there's not a ton of power. Really, just Aaron Judge with the only notable ISO in this lineup, and he's batting leadoff today. So Rasmussen at 9.4K, even if you feel like you're overpaying for him, I think he has to be in the pool for me. And depending on how this next 30 minutes of information on weather shake out, I probably will get to more Rasmussen now than I thought I would have this morning, because of the potential lack of Robbie Ray and Charlie Morton if that rain happens to become a real problem in San Diego.
Yeah, if those two come off the slate, there's some game changing stuff in some of those the pitching options there. So definitely worth keeping an eye on some of the different spots with our various pitchers. I'll definitely be getting to Rasmussen. I got the ownership updated. He's 0.5% still on the FanDuel slate at 9,500. He's a 22% strikeout rate guy. And you hit the nail on the head. I talked about it with Josh this morning. And when I was talking down about the Yankees lineup, Giancarlo Stanton was in that projected lineup. So they don't have him today. Miguel Andujar filling in instead. The Yankees are very, very cheap, but these are not the Yankees that put up the season-long numbers that we might be looking at. So are you going to let's start with Frankie Montas, I guess. Are you going to any shares of Montas from the Yankees? Because I think we're going to have a short conversation about Yankees bats.
The pitching overall, I felt, was kind of shallow today. So, yes, I am getting to Montas. I don't always love the back-to-back starts against the same team situation, but I think you and I know this is the most important series of the year right now. This means everything for the AL East, and the Yankees can kind of put it away if they come out strong. So Montas is going to have to come out with his A game and come out sharp. 5 innings in his last start. We haven't really seen him eclipse more than 93-ish pitches, so we need him to be a little bit efficient for that $9,700 price tag. But I think because of how shallow pitching is as a whole in the slate, I got to have some. So right now I got him in my tier 3 category. I don't expect to have more than like 8% of them, but I am getting to some of them.
Okay. So I guess I got to bring it up now. I've buried the lead long enough. On the Tampa Bay Rays, we've got Mr. Wander Franco return to the lineup from the injured list, and FanDuel has done their favor of pricing him at 300, not 3,000, 300.
I literally thought I messed something up in my spreadsheet just now looking. I was like, wait a minute, that ain't right.
Yep, that ain't right is for damn sure. Somehow in our ownership projections, and maybe it's eluded our ownership model somehow as well, or maybe he wasn't projected in when this was updated. He's only drawing like 8.9% ownership at that price. For me, I mean, I've been wrestling with what am I going to do with him all day in terms of like, is that just a lock spot for tournaments at the shortstop and move on and, take some shots at where he goes into the util. And I've got some other high end shortstop as well in some lineups. But I mean, I was wrestling with like, am I going to be like 50-60% Wander Franco or like 100% just lock that spot in here? Tournaments and, cash game, I think it's obvious you have to go there. But that seems really, really low for that player at that stupid broken price. What are you doing with Wander Franco? And then what are you doing with the rest of the Rays?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's like an all-time points per dollar MLB spot, right?
Yeah, this isn't Chris Davis from a few years ago at 200 when you literally couldn't connect with the ball. This is a star caliber shortstop.
I did this with Kike Hernandez years back too, and he actually got involved with it on Twitter. Had some fun with it. Yeah, I think points per dollar projection is going to be through the roof. It's still baseball, right? A home runs win the position. But the 2 spot in Yankee Stadium, that's very valuable implied at bats here. So I definitely would be right there. I would assume that our ownership model is probably not suited for a FanDuel slip up like this. So I don't know. I guess I'd probably be responsible. I wish there was like a pitcher that I had to cram in, like a 13K DeGrom or 40 back in the day, but we really don't have that. So I think it's really, if you think Franco's matchup is well enough to win the position, that's priority one. But I think points per dollar, yeah, any crunch he'll come out as the highest owned guy in any.
He's going to be coming up
lineup
like crazy for people, except for like, when you're forcing stacks that aren't going to him.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're running 4-3s, like I would expect to have quite a bit of them across those, and I kind of want them there because then I can do anything else that I want. I can get to any hitter combo, pitcher combo, any team combos. It just doesn't matter because there's cheap enough hitting in all these other lineups. And like you've said a few times, it's kind of a shallow pitching pool with fairly cheap prices on most of these guys. So everything is on the board if you go there. What about the rest of these Tampa Bay Rays? And then we'll hit the gas pedal a little bit for
yeah, I mean, so far Montes has struggled with lefties, 1.6 homer per night to lefties, so that fits well for Franco, Brandon Lau, and G-Man Choi in the bottom of that lineup as well. You might see some platoonish shenanigans happening with Kevin Cash there, but I would zone in on the lefties. But Yandy Diaz or Rosarena, Yankee Killer, Harold, 1 through 5 looks really, really good to me. But really no one's off limits. I don't think I go out of my way to take anyone out of the pool here, but you do expect some platoon stuff, substitutions throughout the game.
Yeah. And those would be the guys that you get that concern around. But for me, that top end, especially, the Franco situation, and on DK, they're affordable as well. And they're completely unowned over there. And Montas is a gettable pitcher. So I think you can take some shots, but you don't need to go out of your way for him either. It's not like an aggressively good spot. The pretty bad Yankees lineup that we brought up. Are you going here at all? Any hitters you want to call out at all from the Yanks, or should we just kind of mention Aaron Judge and move on?
Yeah, I mean, lead off Judge. Just they've been walking him like crazy in the last week. Different series here. I'm sure Cash will be careful as well. But yeah, this is a lineup that is very, very top heavy.
Yeah, they're not going to lose this game to Aaron Judge, and I mean it is Aaron Judge. I think it was Joel Sherman in the New York Post. It's basically Aaron Judge and the Pips, with apologies to the Pips. These guys are not good. So yep, it's a move on spot for me. Let's talk about the Nationals with Pat Corbin, another spot to target with bats here against the Phillies with Noah Syndergaard on the hill. I think Syndergaard's kind of interesting, just kind of on his ability to pitch through this team, clean a few times over, get deep into the game, and maybe find a few strikeouts along the way. And he's cheap on FanDuel and not really getting attention. DK, it's a little bit expensive, but not at all owned over there. So I assume you're not getting any Corbin here. If you are, correct me. But what are you doing with Noah Syndergaard?
Yeah, no Corbin here. Syndergaard, man, DraftKings price point is very, very high at 10K. Well, like I said, we might have to overpay a little bit today, especially if we are anticipating the loss of Robbie Ray, Charlie Morton, our top 2 price pitchers. And then that leaves, Dustin May against the Padres team that just kind of worked them. So pitching, this might not be a night where we brace ourselves for 30 from pitching tonight. And if you think Syndergaard can get you 16, 20, even knocking on the door at 20 just might be enough to satisfy tonight. I usually don't like to play Syndergaard just because this year we haven't seen big K stuff, 17.5% K rate on the season, $1.25 on the whip, and a 9.6% swing and strike rate. And we know he struggles holding base runners, and Nashville's one of those nothing to lose teams that will run. So I'm not that enthralled, but I understand it. Like, I think if he gives up a couple of earnings here and slides through 5 or 6, I kind of like the Phillies team a lot to give him a chance at that win. So I understand the thought of it. I'm not warm and fuzzy on it, but I also haven't really made my drastic changes on Robbie Ray and Charlie Morton potentially not being in my player pool.
Okay, so wait, let's talk about that real quick because I want to clean that up. Charlie Morton, Robbie Ray are in Seattle. It's
I'm sure. Yeah.
Yep. I just wanted to make sure we clean that up because you said it earlier and I was just like, I probably just tripped over it.
My brain is I wasn't ready.
I don't want you. What I didn't want you to do was take them out of your crunch while you're talking to me about it and not think it through. So Morton and Ray should be good, but May and Clevenger definitely at risk in that. Okay. So let's jump in here. You mentioned Phillies bats. I kind of hinted at it when I said how bad Corbin was. He's been a target for me for the better part of 2 years and change. I think there's some nice upside for Phillies bats. Some of that righty power here. They're getting some attention on the DK slate, but they're not aggressively overowned. On FanDuel, maybe the top end is aggressively overowned, but I think it's a spot I still want to try and get to. And like I mentioned, I mean, there are just so many different ways to go. Once you pay $300 at that shortstop spot that you can put anything together, I think things will be popular, but you almost don't care because you have so many different angles to combinations. So what are you doing with the Phils? And then any Nats bats for you, knowing that Syndergaard's good at keeping the ball in the yard?
Yeah, the Phillies are going to be probably one of my favorite stacks here. One of my top owned. Patrick Corbin, yeah, give me some of that. Rhys Hoskins is the top guy in my bomb detector. 964 OPS since beginning last year against lefties, 300 plus ISO. Big spot for him. There's really no one in this lineup I would go out of my way to not get a hold of. Dalton Guthrie, I don't have a ton of information on him, but I can look him up real quick. But this is just a super stacked lineup, and it's a version of this lineup that includes it doesn't have Harper today, does it? Hoskins, Alec Bohm, Realmuto. I like that 1 through 4 a lot. I think the bottom 5 gets a little less power infused here, but I don't think that's a huge concern for me, considering that Corbin gives up so much to righties, especially a lot of hit for average. So good spot for the Phillies through and through.
Yeah, and you get like a sneaky guy like Matt Vierling hiding in the 7th spot, right? He's a right-handed bat, 2,500, only getting 8.4% ownership on DK. On the surface, 233, 293, 328. There's not that much that's overly appealing about that in most situations. But in this spot where we're looking to offset a little cost, looking to offset a little bit of ownership, he might be somewhat sneaky against this pitcher who gives up plenty of hard hit, 45% hard hit rate on the season for Pat Corbin, 10.6% barrels. Matt Vierling's got a 48.8% hard hit rate this season. His barrel rate's not great. He doesn't hit a lot of home runs, but if he can drive the ball against Pat Corbin, anything can happen here. He's 2,200 and 3.9% on FanDuel. So sign me up as like a sneaky guy from late in the lineup. Bryson Stott, I think he can take the lefty on. So yeah, I'm with you. Phillies up and down. I think he can get there. Was that a no on going to Nats, or like not aggressively so anyway?
I think, especially if I got to Thor, I would probably get to some Nats insurance policies, just because there is a little bit of pop here. Guys like Voit, Meneses, and then some stolen base potential against Thor is just built in. I know Real Muto has been really, really good at gunning down runners, but it's just kind of a neutralizes the entire situation. And it's a super plus park at Citizens Bank. So yes on the Nats, but especially if I got to some Syndergaard.
Okay. My one concern there is that Syndergaard, just through his career, has been so good at keeping the ball in the yard, taking the bat out of opposing teams' hands. Even if he's not finding the strikeout upside, he's got the upside to pitch through clean, and it's a lineup I don't love. So I don't know how much I'll have, but I don't, I'm not saying you're wrong there by any means whatsoever. And it's certainly a spot we've seen go off and be completely low on when it does a few times this season. Let's jump to the Red Sox against the Orioles. Red Sox with Brian Bayo on the hill. Orioles answering back with Austin Voth. No real love for Austin Voth for me. I'm curious what you think about Brian Bayo in this situation. We talked about him this morning, 7,000 on DK, 7,400 on FanDuel. I think Josh was a little bit more interested than I was. I still don't really trust him, but I like the idea of an extreme ground ball pitcher and a kid who can find some strikeouts. And we've been tossing around the idea of a Framber Valdez with a little bit more strikeout upside if this kid hits what they think he could be. Do you see reasons to go to Bayo here? He's not at all owned and he's cheap.
Yeah, it's one of those believing in the minor league stuff to catch up with his major league stuff. And sometimes we see these big, pitching prospects take a minute to develop in the major league level. 129 strikeouts and 96 innings in the minors. I mean, that's insane. And then, like you said, coupling that with negative launch angle, 60% ground ball rate, that has the potential to be one of the best pitchers in baseball if he can put it all together. And a 7K, if you're going to get an opportunity at that, before it officially catches up and then, the field takes notice, I think it's worth a shot. Orioles are becoming a team that I'm gaining a lot of respect for. So it's not my favorite matchup, but I think at 7K, the opportunity of getting a pitcher with that potential, it's just really, really great, especially when we consider that the pitching slate's a little bit more shallow. So DraftKings probably a little bit more enticing for me. An SP2 7K, can I get 14, 16, and then go from there? But I'm absolutely interested in Bello, just waiting for the pedigree from the minors to catch up with him.
Yeah, that's it. I kind of said this morning that, I want to see something from him at the major league level, and he's delivered in spots for us, but it hasn't been consistent enough for me. Still the 10.7% walk rate, a 1.81 whip is that's way too much, but I still believe, and with nobody else going there, I think I will draw some shares, probably a little bit more enthusiasm than I had this morning. What about Voth on the other side? Somebody in chat mentioning that they like Voth. Also, quick shout out to EMAC, who's in the chat and bringing up the Pep Strubeck and Joe Friday from the classic Dragnet, People Against Good and Normalcy, Pagan. Great.
I have no idea what you just said.
You have no idea, right?
I have no idea what y'all are talking about.
Dan Aykroyd, Tom Hanks from probably 1980. want to say 87, probably.
I wasn't
like a reboot tribute movie to the old Dragnet police series from like the 50s or 60s or whenever that was. Probably
I wasn't
60s.
alive for any of that.
Yeah. I was alive for the 80s.
Yeah.
I was alive for the 80s. I caught up on that one in the 90s. All right, let's talk both. Let's talk bats. We got to keep the show moving along here. So what do you think on both and then on bats?
Yeah, so Austin Voth on the bump here for the Orioles. Not much to like here. 1.4 whip, 4.26 expected ERA, 20% K rate, so 1-5. This lineup for the Red Sox, though, is a pretty decent version of it. Trevor Story's in the mix. Rafi Devers batting cleanup. I'm more interested in the Red Sox offense here than Austin Voth's arm. He is cheap.
He is cheap. Yeah, I won't be going there, though. Don't need it. Doesn't project great for me. Talk about the Red Sox bats. Not really getting that much attention outside of Devers, who is at a very playable ownership mark. Everybody else very easy to get to.
Yeah, Devers top of the game in my bomb detector here. You can sell me on a 1 through 6. Bottom 3 of the lineup, you get a couple of prospects, a couple guys playing for Josh, get Kike Hernandez in the mix. So 1 through 6 would be the focus for me.
No Tristan Casas on the FanDuel slate. You get him for the dead minimum, 2,000 on the DK slate. That's a spot I want to get to. Premium power hitting prospect. Definitely a nice little addition to the bottom end of that lineup. So don't cross him out if you're building Red Sox stacks. I'll definitely be getting there on FanDuel, even though he's not in the lineup. You mentioned the Orioles. I want to fast forward through this one a little bit. Cedric Mullins, Adley Rutschman, Anthony Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, Gunnar Henderson, Austin Hayes, Kyle Stowers. Anybody on that list that you wouldn't put in your lineup? And then would you play Ramon Urias and Rougned Odor?
Yeah, I wouldn't take anyone off that list. The matchup, negative launch angle is such a ground ball rate. I'm not that enthralled with it as I am in other spots, but they're still talented enough that I'm getting there. Just not. Are
they potentially over-owned because of that? Because of his potential to just keep the ball on the ground the entire game? Even if
even if we haven't seen his strikeout stuff catch up to his minor league numbers yet. But the ground ball rate's still there, 50%, 64% to righty. So it's not like he hasn't given up a homer yet. So, and that's king in these giant slates, especially that, might feature Coors Field. I got to have homer potential. So looking at our top stack tool, which is free today, which is incredible. We got him at 3.6% owned. That's right there in line with their top stack odds. So, they're appropriately owned. And I think it's fair to be there, but I wouldn't be much higher than that.
Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be pushing much beyond the field. And if you're under, I don't think you're making a mistake. But there are some bats I like. They just got to get the ball out of the park for us if you're going there. That was a dynamite callback on the plugs by you, by the way. Gunn just pulled that. He doesn't have a sheet that I know of or anything like that in front of him. He just knows. So speaking of business, since I've forgotten most of the business I'm supposed to be doing and I'm hosting the show, the Scramble promo. Football season's finally arrived, which means that you out there, if you're within the sound of my voice, you can take advantage of one of the best deals of the year. Click the link in the description of this video below or use the promo code SCRAMBLE, all one word, all in caps, at checkout to get 7 days of Stokastic Plus NFL for only $7. That's 70% off the original price. This includes full access to all the premium content and tools for NFL DFS that we have to offer on Stokastic.com, including our all new lineup generator, player projections, ownership projections, top stacks, our boom bust tool, so much more for NFL. Guys, if you're not using the different tools for NFL, you are just missing out. You're missing the boat. There's going to be a bunch of logos up at the top of these huge tournaments over the weekend. Get in there, check it out. Fantasy Cruncher, always a paid add-on, not included with this promo, but it's easy enough to add it on to your account after the fact. The promo is valid through Tuesday, September 13th. So if you jump on there and you think about it, you're probably getting, this weekend we're basically at Sunday. You get a decent chunk of next week as well. That's almost 2 weekends for $7. That's not too bad. Promo code SCRAMBLE at checkout. I'm also going to nail the Odd Shopper plug here because we're like halfway through the show and we've only done a few games. Make your best bets in 30 seconds or less with Odd Shopper. That's our sister site. 2 S's in the middle. You find it linked at the top of Stokastic. There's an Odd Shopper link. It's also linked down in the promo descriptions and whatnot down there below, I'm sure. Hundreds of bets featured daily. Helps you gain the edge you need on betting player props, game lines across all different sports. Sign up for free now via the link in the video description. Gain access to our proprietary data, which helps you make your best bets. With the expected win percentages and ROIs included, Odd Shopper uses the same DFS projections we use at Stokastic to filter out out the best bets available. It's got a parlay builder on there for optimized parlays. It's got an arbitrage tool for risk-free guaranteed profit bets across different sports books. And that's where it really helps out. It helps you find, if you've got a bet in mind that you've really been dying to make all day, it's going to help you find the best spot to make that bet so you're making the most money on it when it hits. Great site. It's going to help you find it. We've also redesigned it. There's a new front page to it. There's articles up there now. So if you haven't been there in a while, go check out Odd Shopper. 2 S's in the middle, Odd Shopper. We'll do the Hall of Fame maybe a little bit later on, but let's dive through a bunch of these games now, Gun. Blue Jays and Rangers. Ross Stripling on the mound, Dane Dunning on the mound. Both good pitchers, maybe both better real life pitchers than fantasy pitchers, but serviceable and definitely serviceable in spots. Neither one drawing attention, both at a fair price. Are you going to either one of these guys?
Not with any type of confidence. I do kind of like the idea of a DraftKings 6,100 Dane Dunning in Arlington. He's been really, really sharp, 22.6% K rate, only a 1 homer per 9. Blue Jays are just a scary team, so I wouldn't get more than 4 or 5%.
Yeah, and that's what Josh and I talked about with it this morning, and that's how I've kind of been treating it, through most of the season. Dunning's a pitcher that I do like. I will go to in spots. I just see no need to really tangle with the Blue Jays that much. So I'll be surprised if I end up even, the field's at 8.8 on FanDuel. So maybe I'll be a little ahead of the field. Maybe I'm, 2-3%, but it won't be many shares. DK, yeah, if you want to get out to that 8%, I don't think you're necessarily making a mistake, but I wouldn't chase it more than that. What about Stripling on the other side against the Rangers?
3.42 expected ERA, 22% K rate. I mean, those numbers are enough to fight 8,200, trying to get 14, 16. Again, no warm or fuzzy. So I'd be really, really low if I got there.
Okay. Yeah, and I think that's totally fair on him. 22% strikeout rate, doesn't walk anybody, never gets himself in trouble. So maybe he finds some upside. But I just think, especially with money to spend, I want to go to those premium pitchers today. I think I'm going to just eat a little bit of chalk at pitcher and get different with bats. Blue Jays bats, are you going to them since you're leaving the pitcher mostly on the table because of them? They're pretty low on, they're expensive on DK.
So with Dane Dunning, we can kind of hyper focus on his righty splits with just Raimel Tapia and Jackie Bradley Jr. being the lefties. And against righties this season, Dunning has almost a 60% ground ball rate. Now, he does allow over a 1 homer per 9, so he can get got. But I think he's been really, really solid, and a lot of his woes have come against left-handed hitters. So this might be a little bit of a trap spot, and this might be like the Orioles, where if they came in too high owned because of those splits, I'd kind of look the other way. But looking at our top stack tool, Blue Jays coming in with a 2% ownership share versus a 5% chance to be the top stack. So positive leverage built in there. So I think we have to get there. They get George Springer back in the top of the lineup, and that becomes a really strong 1-2 punch with Springer and Vladdy. And then it doesn't get that diminished in power. Matt Chapman batting 5th, and Kirk's in the mix as well. They're really, really expensive on DraftKings, 1 through 4, over 5K a piece. And this is a night that features Coors. So it's going to be low owned if you just like to bet on talent. There's plenty of talent with no ownership.
Yeah, I think that's what we're doing. If we go to that spot, it's one of those just talent versus not having anybody else there. You're definitely paying a premium to do it on the DK slate. Definitely more affordable on FanDuel. I'll be doing it a little bit aggressively on the FanDuel slate. I think it's a nice spot despite Dunning's talent. Just especially with the Coors game on the slate drawing a lot of attention. I like to get to some of these different teams. I'll be doing the same thing with the Braves going up against Robbie Ray. That's another, I think, potentially sneaky spot. What about the Rangers? Marcus Semien, Corey Seager, Nate Lowe, Jonah Heim, Cole Calhoun, throwing them up against a semi-contact based righty, but one who doesn't necessarily give up too much. Any love for the Rangers here?
Kind of overpriced too with Semien and Seager at the top. With Ross Stripling, we're looking for that power to righties to come back. Last 2 years, it's been a problem. So far this year, he's picked up 12% on ground ball rate to righties. Will that sustain? Well, we've got over 100 innings of sample size to suggest that maybe it is something that is here to stay. And if that's the case, then he's going to hold a sub 0.8 homer per 9. So not a lot of enthusiasm to get to the Rangers here.
Okay. What about the cheap bats down the bottom? Josh Young, Josh Smith, Bubba Thompson. Any love for those guys? I know people were talking about Josh Young for whatever reason. He's dead minimum 2,000 in the chat earlier. It
feels like this slate's giving us a lot better value that isn't so, bottom of the lineup at home.
Yeah, again, and against a good enough real life pitcher in Stripling, I just don't. I don't really see the need there. So a little bit of enthusiasm on the Blue Jays. Real quick, Jeff Williams, apologies, I did accidentally miss that super chat, but thank you very much for it. We appreciate it. $4.99 from Jeff Williams. Thank you, buddy. He says says, I am playing a single bullet in the $888 tournament on DK. What two pitchers would you play if you were doing that, Gun? DK, two pitchers for the 88.
So I probably Morton and Rasmussen from where I'm standing, but Giolito's knocking on the door. So I'm going to be thinking about those three.
Okay. I like that answer a lot. Morton would probably be, I'd probably say Morton. And for me, I'd probably go Giolito just to, maybe pick up a little bit of savings there. But I don't think that, Rasmussen's necessarily a wrong answer either. So definitely good either way, and depends on what else you're trying to put in your lineup there. But we appreciate the super chat out there, and we are going to move on to the next game here. Tigers against the Royals. A couple of ugly looking lefties, Joey Wentz, Daniel Lynch. I assume you're not going to either pitcher. Is there any reason? Do you see any upside in going to Lynch here? I guess he'd be the talking point against the Tigers. For me, I chase the Tigers strikeout rate against righties, not necessarily against lefties. Are you going there at 6,000 on DK, 6,300 on FanDuel?
No.
Okay, fair enough. Good talk. I'm not going there. 10% of the field is on DK, 2.3% on FanDuel. I just don't see it. This guy's a target. So I might draw a few shares of Tigers bats. I might draw a few shares of Royals bats on the other side, but the Royals are getting a good amount of attention. Tigers potentially sneaky, except for Eric Haas. Are you going to either one of the stacks, or are you going to any individual bats from this game?
Yeah, actually, I'm not anti either stack here. I put down 6% Tigers, 6% 8% Royals. So I'm there on the bats. I think both pitching staffs are beatable here. I think Daniel Lynch, I'm even more interested since he's probably overowned based on my thoughts of him. And I do like this Tigers team a lot more against lefties than righties. Even guys like Javi Baez and Eric Haas, they serve a much better role against contact lefties with 229 ISO, 234 ISO since the beginning of last year. So I'm in on the Tiger stack, and then on the Royal side, Vinny Pasquantino back in the mix, 1 through 4, really, really solid. Michael A. Taylor has a shot to deliver as well. So I like the bats more than the arms here.
Yeah, for sure. This one's just bats for me. Neither arm really comes into the equation at all. You mentioned all the guys I'm really interested in. Some of them getting attention. It's going to be a dance around those guys, but I think we can get there. Again, there's just so many different angles to approach this slate based on some of these different prices. So interesting spot there. Let's move on. Reds, Nick Lodolo on the mound, the talented young lefty, 28.3% strikeout rate, priced up on FanDuel, very affordable on DK, taking on Jason Alexander, not drawing any attention because he doesn't deserve any, frankly, on either site. So talk to me about Nick Lodolo. You're going to him pushing nearly 30% ownership on DK, only around 10% on FanDuel.
Yeah, 28% K rate, and this version of the Brewers lineup, just McCutchen, Renfroe, and Urias strike out at like 20%, and that's still something I would attack. The rest of this lineup is flirting with 26 plus to 30% K rate. So the strikeout potential ceiling is huge here. So I do like the thought of him just based on those numbers. So yeah, I'm there on Lodolo. I would like his whip to be a little bit lower, the walk rates to be a little less pesky, but that's just the risk reward we have to deal with.
Yeah, taking any hedge stacks out with him against the Brewers here on the other side. Definitely some interesting multi-position eligibility on some of these guys, pretty fair prices, and some guys who can, in the right day, mash some left-handed pitching.
Yeah, McCutchen, Adames, Renfroe, Mike Rousseau. You worry about the platoon, but there's certainly some guys that can get to a left-handed pitcher.
Yep. Can we talk about Kiston here real quick and his multi-position eligibility for 3,200 on DK, 0.7% owned, 2,400 on FanDuel, 0.9% owned. Mr. Hira, I don't know if you've noticed 224 plate appearances this year, 14 home runs, a 244 ISO, a 46.6% hard hit, 16.5% barrel rate. He's been murdering the ball this year. He's been delivering on that famed prospect pedigree that he had coming up. That's a great spot if you're going to Brewer stacks here. I think Mike Brasso is also interesting in the middle of that lineup for cheap, just as another guy who can potentially mash lefties. Any concerns for those kind of guys are about getting pinch hit for, and do you even worry about it? Like you kind of got to take them anyway, right?
Yeah, it's mainly Mike Brousseau for me, but it's one of those that I don't really overthink it if I can help it, just in the interest of stacking, letting Cruncher handle it. There's like
if they don't pitch
the
hit
Giants,
for him and you get him against a right, he's probably giving you a 0 in that at bat anyway. So what are you really losing? Right?
Yeah, I was gonna say, really, it's just the Giants that dang near finish with a different roster than they start with.
Yeah.
The rest of these teams are just like the Vogelbachs into somebody else.
Right.
It's just a one or two guys that are platoon specialists. But
yeah, and usually those guys have enough upside like that you can, you go there and you don't really worry about it. Any Reds bats for you on the other side of this one? I don't want to leave them out of the conversation entirely. Jake Fraley drawing a little bit of attention on DK.
Yeah, Alexander, 322 average allowed to lefties, 186 home run per nine, plenty of power to target. Fraley, like you mentioned, a leadoff TJ Friedel, two guys that I think would lead my interest levels. And then the fact that Jason Alexander has just a 12% K rate to righties, even though he couples that with a 66% ground ball rate, if you dare a guy like Aquino to make a contact and neutralize his 42% K rate, it could be a spot for him to continue. I think he homered in the last couple of days too. So it could be a spot for him to make contact with the ball. And he doesn't make contact a lot, but I got a 12% barrel rate when he does. So there's an opportunity.
Got a lot of contact catching up to do on the season, so maybe he saved it all up for September. But you're getting him dead minimum. I brought him up on this morning's show, and I kind of like the wind ran out of my sails as I was talking about. It's like I promise you guys, he can hit for power. It's in there somewhere. But yeah, it's been ugly. But yeah, I'm with you. If you're going there, I think it makes sense to include him. Let's knock out another one. Angels with Michael Lorenzen on the hill, taking on the excellent Astros. Lance McCullers going for the Astros. Very fair pricing for McCullers here in a good strikeout matchup. I assume you're not drawing any shares of Mike Lorenzen against this Astros lineup. If you are, I'll try and talk you out of it. But what about Lance McCullers? What are you doing with him?
Man, yeah, this Angels lineup just gives you a ton of strikeout upside. Just Rengifo and David Fletcher sub 20% K rates, and Rengifo's at 18 against righties. So there's a good spot for McCullers to get some Ks. So far, he hasn't really shown a ton of that strikeout propensity that we've seen in the past. Last year we had a 27% K rate. This year just 21% so far, but he might be working his way back towards that. Still has a double-digit swing and strike rate, so it's not like he's completely diminished. And the expected ERA is slightly above 4. So I think just because of the matchup, I have to get some shares of him. Obviously, you're gritting your teeth on 2-hole, 3-hole hitters, but I think I'm in on some shares of McCullers.
Yeah, I am as well. And that's it, really. We're talking about a lineup where you have to get around those two bats, and then it's fairly smooth sailing. My one concern about McCullers, you mentioned it, the strikeouts have not yet come back. And when we're talking about a guy who in a good year walks 10+%, that could become problematic because he typically relies on the strikeout to get himself out of that trouble. But I just think there's so much strikeout upside and so little threat in this Angels lineup that you can go there again and again. Are you drawing shares of Astros bats against Michael Lorenzen here? Only the two big lefties, Jordan Alvarez and Kyle Tucker, getting a lot of attention. Everybody else below 10%.
Yeah, I think Astros are just that stack that I always get to, especially when they're coming in at 5% or less owned. Lorenzen's going to dare to put the ball in play, 1.35 whip. So the entire lineup is in play for me. The prices are up there. And again, Coors Field and some of these other upper echelon offenses, maybe taking that budget from most of the player base. But I think the Astros are in a big spot.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and it's just a lineup that I think through the entire season we've talked about the Astros in this context of just when you can get bats in this lineup that are under-owned, and a lot of these guys are. Alex Bregman, 2.3%, Altuve, 2.2%, Jeremy Pena, 6.9%, Trey Mancini, 1.3%, Chas McCormick, 3.1%. There are just so many good spots there that you can offset that popularity. And when they're under-owned, I want to be on this stack. So that's a spot I'm going to attack aggressively. Outside of Trout and Ohtani, any reason to go to the Angels?
Not really for me. I was looking back at McCullers. I didn't realize he was so negatively leveraged in our top pitchers tool. 26.5% ownership on DK, a 12% chance to be in a top 2 pitcher. So that might be on a big slate when I'm looking for some ways to be different. I might have to hit the X button and just play the numbers there and hope that a quarter, I can get a quarter of my lineup's different, or a quarter of the field is different than what I'm working with.
And I mean, that's a move I don't totally mind making because of what I was saying before about the risk of the walks coming up to bite them and the lack of strikeouts. So maybe it is an interesting spot where we undercut a little bit in favor of other options. We'll see how it comes out. I just dropped everything into the sort here. about 20 minutes to go before lock, so we got a little time to mess around with that. So I'll be doing that in the background here while we jump over to the next game. Ty, we'll all talk through the Hall of Fame, but let's skip the slideshow. We got a few games left to talk through here. The Guardians with Cal Quantrill on the mound, taking on the Minnesota Twins with Dylan Bundy going for the Twins. Both pitchers cheap, both pitchers completely unowned. Both pitchers have a strikeout rate in the 16% range. Are you going to either one of these pitchers?
No, I don't think I will.
Yeah, I agree with that. I don't think there's any need to pay in the 8,000s for Cal Quantrill here. Dylan Bundy, like if you're shopping around, if you're spreading out a bunch of different lineups for like Dane Dunning and you threw a couple Dylan Bundy's way, I don't think you're necessarily making a mistake, but there's just so little strikeout upside in this lineup. There's a few guys who can hit the ball out of the yard. So I just don't see it, but I wouldn't tell anybody they were necessarily wrong if they wanted to go there. Let's talk bats. Guardians bats outside of Jose Ramirez, who's drawing 5.2%, even at 6,200 on DK, pushing around 10% at 3,900 on FanDuel. Nobody getting any love in this lineup whatsoever. And there's some talented bats. Are you going to any Guardians here?
Yeah, man, I tell you what, I'm looking over at the run total. They have a 3.7 run total, which is really low against Dylan Bundy. I get it. It's cooler temperatures and maybe a little rain.
Oh, yeah. Are we concerned about the weather? Did anything else pop up on this one too?
I don't have an update, but it was one of the biggest trouble spots. So,
so yet another reason to kind of cross off the pitchers.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, I think off the matchup wise, I would be interested in the Guardians if we didn't deal with the elements here. I think Naylor, Jose Ramirez, probably my favorite handcuff of the bunch here, but you can slide in Rosario, Kwan, Oscar Gonzalez, Andres Gimenez. It's not high levels of confidence, but this is a very scrappy, put the ball in play team. And this Twins defense, you've seen it in this Yankees series. It's Carlos Correa and everyone else. So I do think a team that puts the ball in play against the Twins has a chance here. But this weather might make things murky for me.
Yeah, that's the weather's the only real concern there. But I agree. Just a team that can put the ball in play like this, and then some of the guys can hit for power. There's a decent amount of speed in there. They're an interesting, frisky lineup against the pitchers. Definitely going to give them some contact. What about the Twins on the other side? Because I think the same could be said about the Twins to some degree. So you're going to any Twins bats here? They're also cheap. They're also unowned.
Yeah, if the game is available, I think Arise Correa, I like that 1-2 punch there. They threw Miranda in the bunch. Usually, that's a guy that's in the lineup against lefties at the top. Then Nick Gordon, he's really flexing some power so far this season. So I'm in on it. This is just really not the A team for the Twins that you expected to start the season. No Polanco, no Buxton. So tapered expectations, and they also have a sub-4 implied run total. So this might be a sub-stack spot featuring Correa, Arise, and a combo of like Gordon or Urshela.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the hitters that I'll take in small doses. I do like the multi-position 3 spots on Arise for 2,700 is nice. 2 positions on there for the same price. Outfield and shortstop and Nick Gordon hitting cleanup for 2,100. There's some interesting spots there. So I'll take what I get on the Twins, but not a team I'm like excited to go out of my way for. And now, actually, no. I'm going to do the Hall of Fame read real quick because I want to delay talking about Coors Field for as long as I can. I hate Coors Field. If you finish in the top 3 in a contest with 5,000 people or more in it, all you need to do is tweet at Stokastic HOF. That's at Stokastic HOF and get in the Hall of Fame. And that will get you a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. The one that I mentioned earlier in the show, you got to pay attention all the way throughout the show. These things come back. We've got all kinds of callbacks. The Platinum plan is the one that includes everything that we cover. So NFL, MLB, NBA, PGA, NASCAR, et cetera, abbreviations of all kinds. They're all included, all the different tools. The top stacks, top pitchers, top stacks for football, the different, all the different value plays, all the different boom bust tool for basketball, anything like that, all in the Platinum plan. So jump in there, go win yourself a contest, finish in the top 3 in a contest with 5,000 people or more in it with our avatar in your logo there. Tweet it at Stokastic HOF and we'll put you in there and we'll retweet that and congratulate you and you get a shout out on the show. But we're not going to do the shout outs on the show. Tyler might be showing them on the screen. I'm not looking at that. Let's move on to Coors Field. Zach Davies on the hill for the Diamondbacks. Targetable pitcher there. German Marquez going for the Rockies. Maybe a little less targetable. Somebody who always pitches, knows how to pitch anyway well in Coors Field. Always is a stretch. But what are you doing with the pitching? Are you going to any shares of Marquez? I assume no shares of Davies here.
Yeah, I don't have any shares of either pitcher.
I think that's totally justifiable on a slate where there's enough options and you don't need the discount. Talk to me about the bets. They're drawing some popularity. Diamondbacks getting more of it, justifiably so. The prices are still low. The Rockies side of things not getting that much attention, a little bit less than they were this morning. So that situation flipped a little bit. But what are you doing with Coors Field here?
I mean, it's always anytime Coors is on the slate, big slate, I go straight to that free top stacks tool at Stokastic, and at the tippy top, 15% ownership on the D-backs. We've seen worse, a 10.8% chance to be in the top stack, and then the Rockies a little bit more in line with, a little bit more efficient. We'll say 7.7% chance to be in the top stack and 8% ownership. So not egregious. So I think they. If you're giving me a chance to get to Coors Field at sub 10% ownership, I'm there on the Rockies. And then the D-backs, even if we met in the middle from field to 13%, I think that's a fair way to approach it. I think the problem with the Coors today, more so than usual, is Wander Franco made it even easier on FanDuel to get here.
Yeah.
And then on DraftKings, they really haven't been pricing Coors efficiently at all this season. The Rockies a little bit better today with CJ Cron at 5,200, Brendan Rodgers at 5K, but then they offset it immediately with a guy like two-hole hitting Jonathan Daza at 2,700. So as long as his ownership is where it's at, I'm fine being here, and I don't think it's one of those grit your teeth and bear it if the field's at 30%. It doesn't seem like it is projection wise.
Yeah, it's not crazy, especially on the Rocky side, and you're targeting Zach Davies. So it's definitely a playable spot, more friendly than a lot of occasions. And like you said, the Diamondbacks just not priced appropriately for Coors. Everybody under 5,000 just doesn't make sense. So Rojas, Marte, McCarthy, Walker, Varsho, and Carroll all drawing a decent amount of attention, but totally warranted. And they get Carson Kelly cheap, Alec Thomas, Geraldo Perdomo down toward the bottom of the lineup. Let's move on. Atlanta Braves in the next game here. I think this is a spot we've talked about a few times. Charlie Morton, Robbie Ray going in this one. 21% ownership for Morton, 32% on DK for Robbie Ray. Fair price for both talented pitchers, high strikeout rate guys, both in the 28% range. How much of these guys are you getting to?
It's the Scumdacker slate or spot of the century here. Game of the day, all four corners. And then we have to play ownership. So Robbie Ray, I definitely want to undercut the 32% ownership on DraftKings. I'll probably be closer to that 20% that we have him as a top two pitcher. I just fear the Braves that much. Morton, I'm willing to overshoot a little bit. We got him an 18.5% chance to be in a top two pitcher, 22% ownership. So close enough, especially if I throw away the Lance McCullers. And then looking at our top stack tool, looking for the Dodgers and Mariners, they're kind of at the bottom. The Mariners coming in at under 1% owned stack wise, and Atlanta coming in at 1% owned. We've seen Atlanta. I mean, they're in a division with DeGrom and Scherzer and Alcantara. Like, they're facing elite pitchers all year. And how many times are they still dropping 6, 7, 8 runs in those games? So at 1% ownership, I think that they're way too talented for that ownership. And this 1 through 6 of today's projected or today's confirmed Braves lineup, just absolutely insane with the power. So Robbie Ray can get got, and he has a 1.4 homer per night to righty so far this season and a 41% fly ball rate. So I'm way over on the field at the Braves. I think right now I have about 8% on the Braves. So I'm way above the field.
Okay. Yep. You and me both. That was a spot I loved this morning when it came up, just because nobody there. It's on the team that's on the list of when they're that low owned. I almost don't care who's on the hill on the other side. And like you said, as good as he is and as good as he is for strikeouts and ace caliber pitcher in a lot of ways, Robbie Ray is gettable. He walks too many guys, puts too many guys on base from time to time. It hasn't been as egregious the last 2 years as it used to be, but he still does give up a fair amount of hard hit, a fair amount of home runs. So I think some of those hitters are going way underrated. The Acuñas, the Swanson, Riley, Olsen from the top of the lineup, Darno in the lineup today, hitting 5th. Interesting catcher for only 4,300 on the DK slate. Don't sleep on this lineup, top to bottom. I'll be getting to the Braves here, and the Mariners, same situation. So yeah, it's in all four sides are for me as well. On the Mariners side, anybody that you wanted to call out in particular from the Mariners?
Not in particular. I like a power lefty here and there against Morton, but I think with the Mariners, I'm looking at just talent. Julio Rodriguez, and that's my favorite of the bunch here. But man, you got to go up and get him at 5,800 too.
Yep. Yeah, definitely no discount for going up against a great pitcher, but definitely a lot of his teammates. Ty France immediately cheap, and a lot of help throughout that lineup. Carlos Santana only 2,300, Adam Frazier 25. A lot of easy spots to get to. So going up against a very good pitcher, but I do think there's enough talent in that lineup. So they'll be on the board for me. Another team that's probably on the board for me, at least to some degree, the Chicago White Sox. We talked about their pitcher briefly at the top of the show, but I think he's very, very interesting here, going up against the most targetable team in the league with pitching, the Oakland Athletics. We've got Luke Giolito going for the White Sox. Austin Pruitt, like you talked about at the beginning of the show, now on the bump for the Athletics. How much Luke Giolito here? 8,200 on FanDuel, very cheap. 85 on DK, very cheap. Getting some attention, but maybe not enough.
Yeah, so Giolito, especially really at the top pitcher tool on Stokastic, Giolito is negatively leveraged, as is Lance McCullers. So if I'm willing to do a trade here, right? I think I'm going to let the field have McCullers, and I'll hang on to Giolito just because the matchup checkbox is in his favor, the hitters and the park. Giolito, 25% K rate so far this season, almost a 12% swing and strike rate. The whip way too high, the expected ERA above what you want it, but you feel like this is a spot that can forgive those numbers and maybe help them climb towards some of the big games that we saw from yesteryear. And 8,500 on DK, 8,200, still just really, really too cheap. So if you had the 1v1, the negative leverage boys, Giolito versus McCullers, I'm taking Giolito. And that's where I'm just kind of offset that negative leverage, and I'll be about 25%.
Yep, I'm very much with you on that spot. I love the spot for Luke Giolito. Been throwing pitchers at this Athletics team all year long, and I've brought it up on a number of different shows. 368 xFIP for Giolito this year, when we were throwing him into rosters like crazy last year and thinking he was a superstar. 375 xFIP. So he's been reasonably talented still this year, despite the dip in strikeouts. Any love for White Sox bats going up against Austin Pruitt here?
Yeah, they won me a lot of money last night, so I owe them.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Congrats, buddy.
Freaking, I don't know what it is, man. Elvis Andrews. I don't know what the White Sox have done to Elvis Andrews.
He must watch our show. That's why I think
maybe
he needed some bulletin board material, and he watches our show, and he's heard both of us talking bad about him on shows recently, as did Adam a few days ago. But yeah, he's been on fire the last like 10 days or so.
Man, yeah, unreal. Maybe a little revenge in his bones here too. So I'm in on the White Sox, 4.6 run total. I was really here for the Caprillion, but I'll stay for the Pruitt if you're gonna keep it. Pruitt 3.12 homer per nine to lefties, and then against righties a 273 average allowed, 4.39 xFIP, 1.1 homer per nine. So still very, very attackable. And I think if we're looking at our top stack tool, the White Sox coming in 6% owned, that's fine. I'm in it. That's close enough to the top stack odds. I have 8%.
Yeah, and I think that's, it's a very talented team. There's some very inexpensive spots too. Jean Moncada, if I remember correctly, was very cheap on the FanDuel slate. Eloy Jimenez has still not been priced up correctly yet. So definitely a targetable spot on that slate. And one that I'm happy to go to. It's a team I haven't won a ton of money yet this year with the White Sox. I've been playing them a ton, but I'm confident they're going to get me there in September at some point. This is too good a baseball team to not. Any reason to go to Athletics bats? Are you getting any like the power lefties here against Giolito, any Seth Brown or anybody like that?
The righties have been like the problem, but bomb detector is not giving me a mass. Maybe Langoliers and Seth Brown, like you said, but okay. No warm and fuzzies.
Yeah, same here. No real reason to go to them, and I'll just want to get to more shares of Giolito for any one of those shares they would have gone into. So not going to be messing with it. Last game on deck, we talked about it briefly up top. A little bit of weird rain threat in the San Diego area, but we've got Dustin May, super interesting pitcher in my book. 10,000 on DK, no love from the field. 9,000 on FanDuel, still no love from the field. Going up against a good Padres lineup, but this is an excellent stud caliber young pitcher who gave us two very good games before his clunker the last time out, still sitting 27.3%. Clevenger answering back on the other side. I'm more concerned about Clevenger with the depth and going up against the Dodgers lineup here. So what are you doing with these two pitchers? How much Dustin May are you going to get to, first of all?
If I end up with none, I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't think that's going to be the case. 10K is a hefty price tag for him, but man, he just looks so good. But this is he's looked so good against not the Padres so far this season.
And
and
it's
this
a tough
is
strikeout spot.
100%. So I think at 10K, that's probably a little too rich for my blood. And then we're already dabbling with some weather concerns now. It looks like it's not going to be that rainy, but the issue with San Diego is, their drainage systems aren't really the same as elsewhere. So it doesn't take as much to get those games canned. So I'm already uneasy about May's price tag and matchup. So I'll probably sit out Dustin May here.
Yeah,
but I'm in on
San
the
Diego
offense.
Is like when you guys get 2 inches of snow down by where you live and people die in traffic jams and stuff. So I get it. Makes sense. What about on the other side? Any Mike Clevenger?
No, not against the Dodgers. These are just these are some heavyweights.
Yeah. So what about the bats? Are you going to stacks of Padres, stacks of Dodgers? Any love on either side here?
Yeah, I will have both. And then, like I said, with the last 3 games locking at the same time, maybe if you're worried about that game getting canned, go a little bit lighter on Braves and Mariners, or even, if we have an hour notice, we can late swap out into more Braves, more Mariners, more Coors. But I think both of these offenses have way too much upside to stay away from. And I love me some second base Mookie Betts on DraftKings.com.
Back to second base Mookie Betts. Oh, that's always a fun part of the year. I was hoping we'd get shortstop Bobby Dahl back. I don't know if you saw the Bo Sox dabble with him at shortstop a couple weeks ago, and I was hoping that would become a thing.
Well, I don't know if he's starting there, but he's eligible there on DraftKings, so it's working out for me.
That is a lot of fun. Definitely fun to play with. All right. I think that wraps that game up decently. I got to get these lineups uploaded here. I'm getting into a ton of Braves. I'm getting into a ton of Giolito. A lot of stuff we talked about. My Wander Franco number is pretty aggressive. I will be on the field on $300 Wander Franco. He is helping a whole lot of very interesting looking stacks come together in my lineups. Top stack for you, or top 2 stacks?
My top 2 owned. I have Phillies as my highest owned stack. Then it's a 3-way tie of 12%ers: Dodgers, Red Sox, D-backs.
Okay, like that a lot. Red Sox definitely an exciting spot that we talked about. Diamondbacks cheap at Coors Field. A lot of interest there. Top 2 pitchers for you.
It's Charlie Morton, and Rasmussen and Giolito are neck and neck in my ownership. So, yeah.
Okay. So, I'm going to have a lot of Giolito, and then a decent amount of, some Ray, a decent amount of Charlie Morton in there. And then whatever sprinkling of value guys, definitely some Dustin May in there for me. Sounded like a little bit more than you were getting to, but I totally understand the reasoning why not getting to Dustin May there. What about a home run call?
Rhys Hoskins, man. How could he not?
Like it. Let's see. Somebody's sitting double the magic number in my model, sitting at a 20. Who is that? Ooh, Mr. Eloy Jimenez. Come on down. Sitting at a 20. Jose Abreu bringing up the field right behind him. Top 2 in my model. That changed from earlier today. So that's a surprise. But all right, interesting spot. I'll take Eloy there. All right. I think that brings us right up to wrap time, gang. We've been brought to you by Odd Shopper. We appreciate everybody hanging out. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, all those good things. Make sure you take advantage of all the different plugs. That was promo code SCRAMBLE to get $7 for a week of Stokastic plus NFL. There's all sorts of different things going on. If you hit the top 3 in the contests with 5,000 or more, tweet it at Stokastic HOF. And make sure you come back tomorrow. We've got 11 o'clock college football live before lock, 1 o'clock NFL strategy show, 5 o'clock MMA live before lock, and then 6 o'clock, we're back here with MLB live before lock. So it's going to be a jam-packed day tomorrow. With that, Gun, tell them where to find you.
Twitter and youtube.com/Gundacker.
There you go. That's where you find the man, the myth, and the legend. I've been Terry McBride. This has been MLB live before lock. Check out Stokastic.com. We're out of here, gang. Thanks a lot. Good luck tonight.